drag bans could result in arrests at pride parades. Laws banning drag performances have been introduced in legislative sessions in at least 14 states this year, and their potential effects are much more far-reaching than entertaining shows. An alarming number of anti-LGBTQ+, particularly anti-transgender bills, continue to be introduced in the states. The ACLU is tracking 278 of them across 33 states. While many target bathrooms, IDs, books, healthcare, education, and sports, a newer trend this year is attempting to ban drag. The most broadly written bills, like Tennessee's House Bill 9 and North Dakota House Bill 1333, ban drag from being performed on any public property, which means drag would not be permitted at pride events. It could also theoretically mean that a transgender person dressing in clothing matching their gender identity but not their sex assigned at birth could be arrested if they did anything constituting a performance, such as lip-syncing to a song they were listening to. In Tennessee and North Dakota, a first offense carries a penalty of up to nearly 1 year in prison and a fine of up to $3,000. Second offense would be a felony and would carry a penalty of up to 6 years in prison and additional fines. I find these bills hard to pass just the eye test, because how you dress doesn't make you a criminal. It's about freedom of expression. And just on its face, these should all be thrown out on their first court challenge. Of course, we've got a Supreme Court where we know at least one justice, Justice Thomas, will vote to uphold these. He said as much in previous rulings. Hopefully we'll have federal judges that will be able to stand up for this, or even state courts that will say, look, just because you're wearing a dress, if you're not cursing, if you're not doing, whatever else would go beyond an R-rated movie, then you can't tell parents not to bring their children, you can't shut down places, you can't lose their liquor licenses. I'm not an attorney, but those are basic things that should always happen.
As a transgender person myself, what I really think of these bills, well, I think a lot of things, but what it seems to me is that it's trying to criminalize the existence of transgender people. Mm-hmm. And in similar vein, trying to enforce legally gender norms, which we know people have been expressing themselves in a variety of ways since the beginning of time. And these are hard to uphold, and I think that's the purpose there for intimidation and fear. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Well, first of all, a pride event isn't a pride event without drag queens and drag kings. So, that just seems ridiculous. And North Dakota, you should really be paying more attention to more pressing issues, such as the weak record on the economy and education that you have. Mm-hmm. That might be a good place to start, and leave us alone.
Mm-hmm. You do work with Julian's Fountain of Youth. Mm-hmm. Are you concerned about your upcoming gala? Because there's already people who are saying, that are alerting the state, the overseeing body, I can't think of it now, but the overseeing body of businesses that issues permits. Are you concerned about the upcoming event?
That would be something to ask Julian, the executive director, to be sure, because I'm sure he's in conversation with the powers that be on that discussion. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned personally because it just puts a target where it doesn't need to be. Mm-hmm. We have better things to do in life than to sit there and worry about, something as trivial as this.
Yes.
It's a waste of energy and a waste of taxpayer dollars and a waste of just judicial time and the whole process to do nothing but go after kids or anyone who happens to be transgendered.
Now let me ask, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead.
Let me go ahead and ask this question. Police come in and raid the pub, which has a drag show just about every night of the week, and they're generally really, really good and not pornographic, besides a few bawdy jokes and things that you'd probably hear in the 9 o'clock hour on primetime back in the 60s,
Well, then you raise the question of, because it says that story specifically said public property.
Right.
Are we now going on to private property?
Right.
Because presumably the pub is not publicly owned. Mm-hmm. Somebody or some company owns that.
Right, but to my point, you can hear them outside. You can certainly see inside through their glass. But then also there's pride in general. From drag story hour to just contingents of drag queens that walk the parade. Mm-hmm. Pride started as a riot. If police come, do we acquiesce? do we silently protest, or do we remind people what the original Stonewall was about?
We need to remind people what the original Stonewall was about. I have seen over the years, here and there, that people want to deny the fact that it was let me get this correct, a trans woman of color, and I'm going to say it how it's in my head, threw the first punch. And a friend of mine was posting on social media today, he was speaking to an older gentleman, a lawyer, who basically was of the opinion these people are going to win, and I kind of agree with him. And the quote from this friend, they're going to win, the kids no longer know how to fight back. And I think to a large extent that's true.
But we have multiple areas and multiple ways to go through this. We have legal means. We have our generation that does know the process on how to fight back from the legal courts and from the avenues that we have politically. The kids may not know how to fight, but there's a huge community that knows how to come in at different angles. We've got television shows and movies and activists and a series of lawyers throughout the country that all know how to work together in unison. And I think it's going to be important for the community, regardless of if it being a social community or a charitable organization, where we all work together as the gay community, as we haven't really done recently. You know, we got very spoiled over the last couple of decades.
Complacent.
You know, so now we have to come back together, and we're going to have to pull in other communities that are being attacked too, the Latino community and the African American community. We're going to have to start working together as a entire community that represents everybody rather than just you or me.
I was at Wilton Manor's City Commission meeting the other night. They granted the annual request for the permit for this year's Stonewall, which is still like 4 or 5 months away. So it's good that they're ahead of the game. But there was also discussion, no final plans put in, but discussion about all of the movement up in Tallahassee. Republicans have supermajorities in both chambers, and the only reason the governor would veto it is if it wasn't hateful enough for his liking. So, but that was already being discussed when they were talking about the permit and how to hopefully avoid unnecessary legal entanglements as we go forward. So this is a building thing. Like I said, they're maybe targeting an event coming up this weekend in Wilton Manors, and certainly other events have been too, and we will continue to follow it.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.